The day I read my wife's will, I realized the life I thought I knew was a lie, stitched with $5 million. Boston, early September 2022. A crisp autumn afternoon. Leaves crunched underfoot outside, and the wind carried a faint bite of frost even before fall had fully set in. The envelope sat on my mahogany desk, edges softened from handling, faintly scented with wax and fallen leaves. A few crumpled receipts peeked from its folds, meticulous traces of a life she had kept carefully apart from me. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from. Emily, 14, perched on the edge of the armchair, eyes wide and curious. "Dad, are you okay?" she asked. Noticing the tension in my hands, I forced a smile, hiding the storm inside. "I'm fine, Pumpkin, just some paperwork." But every line I read made my chest tighten. $5 million bequeathed. Not to me, not to Emily, but to a secret society my wife had belonged to for years. The embossed gold insignia on the letterhead caught the light. A circle enclosing interlaced triangles, elegant and cold. Her signature at the bottom, once a symbol of trust, now felt like betrayal. I ran my finger along the faint creases, inhaling the subtle scent of autumn leaves drifting from the envelope. Emily noticed a folded note tucked inside, covered in triangles, circles, and initials. Symbols I didn't recognize, but that hinted at the depth of her secret world. I opened my laptop, scanning attachments, letters, bank statements, receipts from Boston and New York galas. One March 2018 letter referenced a confidential contribution with a receipt for $75,000. Another January 2020 $60,000. Each number was a thread into a labyrinth she had constructed, a world hidden from me yet carefully mapped for someone she trusted to find it. Emily moved closer. "Dad, did she want us to have something?" she asked softly. I shook my head. She wanted to give it away to them, some organization I don't even know. Her small hand found mine. "We'll figure it out," she whispered. Already she was an active participant, noticing details, connecting threads, and quietly guiding me toward clues I might overlook. I gathered the first wave of evidence: letters, bank statements, minor receipts, all organized chronologically. Each had timestamps, names, and amounts. Proof I could trace. That night, the apartment was quiet, except for the rustle of pages. A crumpled $28.50 receipt dated September 12th, 2021 caught my eye. I slipped it into my drawer and underlined the date with a pen, a small anchor in a world suddenly out of control. Emily had fallen asleep on the couch, book open beside her. I sat at the dining table, pressing my hands to my face. She had loved us, yes, but she had built a separate legacy, one that excluded me. I whispered into the quiet, almost to myself, "I don't understand why, but I will. I have to." Every transaction, every note, every folded receipt became a breadcrumb, leading me toward truth. Allies, a lawyer, a private investigator, and Emily would guide me. Step by step, I would navigate this hidden world. And then I noticed it: subtle patterns in receipts, faint initials and dates circled in her notes. My wife hadn't just hidden money, she had left instructions. They were maps, warnings, and guides. Shadows of her secret life stretched out before me, and I would have to follow them carefully, deliberately, day by day. Outside, Boston's streets reflected amber streetlights on wet pavement. The autumn wind rattled the windows, carrying the smell of leaves and cold air. Betrayal was sharp, grief raw, but beneath it resolve began to form. Emily, attentive and perceptive, would be by my side. The journey into my wife's hidden world had begun, and this time I was ready to follow every clue she had left for us. The night after reading the will, sleep eluded me. Every creak of the apartment, every distant honk from Boston's streets, felt like a signal I had to interpret. I started with the letters and journals my wife had kept, tucked in the back of our study closet behind stacks of legal pads and photo albums. Each initially seemed innocuous: thank you notes from galas, invitations, mundane correspondence, but patterns emerged. Names repeated, initials matched the symbols on the will's envelope, and financial figures aligned with the mysterious donations I had cataloged. One letter, dated November 2nd, 2019, bore her elegant handwriting: "For their work, I hope this helps without drawing attention." They don't yet understand the full picture. The words cut deep. I wasn't the intended audience for her intentions, yet here I was, staring at evidence of a secret life she had led alone. A folded receipt inside indicated $12,500 donated to a charity I didn't recognize. Precise, deliberate, and hidden. Emily hovered near the doorway. "Dad, what's that?" she asked, pointing to a yellowed note pinned to the wall. I handed it to her, cryptic symbols, a series of triangles, circles, and initials. "It's important," I whispered. "Mom wanted someone to understand this eventually." Her eyes lit up. "Maybe I can help," she murmured. From that moment she became more than an observer. She decoded, connected, and noticed details I would have missed. Over the next week, I cataloged every journal, letter, and invoice. I cross-referenced dates with deposits, matching numbers and ledgers from online bank archives. $60,000 in March 2020, $85,000 in November 2018. Each transaction was legitimate on the surface but shrouded in secrecy. These were deliberate omissions from anyone outside the society. Emily found a small, almost childlike scrawl in one journal. "Some gifts are meant for change, not us." Her insight struck me. My wife had thought beyond money, beyond us, toward causes she believed in. Betrayal was tempered by a flicker of understanding, even in secrecy. She had acted with purpose. I organized all the documents meticulously, receipts and invoices in chronological order, ledger anomalies highlighted with red ink. I made photocopies of every letter and note. Every detail was a breadcrumb guiding me deeper into her hidden world. Late one night, Emily compared two journals, whispering softly, "The March donations match gala photos from 2019. Look, the same emblem." She had begun connecting symbols, letters, and photographs into coherent patterns. Without her sharp observations, many threads would have remained invisible. I recorded each discovery, noting dates, names, amounts, and document references. Minor receipts mattered. A $48 parking ticket outside a gala in October 2020, a $22 coffee receipt with initials scribbled on a napkin, all small but significant. By week's end, a portrait emerged, a web of contributions, a secretive network, and a woman who had navigated both worlds seamlessly. My grief, once chaotic, sharpened into strategy. Each pang of betrayal fueled attention to detail. Every tear reminded me what was at stake. I paused one evening, Emily beside me, reviewing the final journal page of the week. "Dad, if we keep going, maybe we can find out why she did this," she said softly. I nodded. Together we were building a foundation, not just to uncover money, but to understand her intent and ensure justice. And yet, doubt lingered. Did I fully comprehend her motives? Could I navigate this labyrinth she had left? The questions haunted me, but I reminded myself, shadows can always be traced, and light will reveal everything. By Sunday night, I had compiled a complete dossier: letters, journals, receipts, invoices, and notes. Each anomaly annotated, each pattern mapped. Emily, perched beside me with a small flashlight over a journal page, pointed out subtle differences in ink color. March 2019 donations in blue, November 2019 in black. Small critical details revealing timing, intent, and hierarchy within the society. The act closed with clarity and resolve. Grief had sharpened into vigilance, betrayal into tactical intelligence, and together Emily and I had begun to untangle the network my wife had left behind. The hidden world was no longer invisible. The breadcrumbs were ours to follow, day by day, step by step. The decision gnawed at me for days. Boston, October 1st, 2022, gray morning, wind slicing through the streets, carrying the scent of wet leaves. Emily sat at the kitchen table, notebook spread, deciphering her mother's symbols and notes. Her small fingers traced lines between initials, dates, and gala photographs. She was already a partner in this investigation, connecting threads I might have missed. "I can help, Dad," she said, eyes focused. "These symbols match invitations. Some are initials, others might be titles or ranks." Her insight sparked clarity in me. If I was going to infiltrate this society, I needed patience, knowledge, and absolute precision. I contacted my lawyer. "I need to enter this organization," I said, Legally, strategically, cautiously. He nodded. No illegal tactics. Gather evidence lawfully, document everything. Anticipate scrutiny. These societies notice inconsistencies instantly. I agreed. Every step mattered. Next, the private investigator arrived with quiet confidence. We traced past gala locations, public filings, and society addresses from 2018 to 2022. Two Boston venues, a Beacon Hill Library meeting room, a recurring conference in New York, receipts, invoices, photographs, every detail a map into her hidden world. October 3rd, I rehearsed introductions, greetings, and ritual gestures. Emily helped, whispering corrections. Don't overthink it. Hesitation is noticed more than mistakes. I memorized sequences of nods, bows, and hand placements from archival photos. October 5th, archival photographs and hidden notes guided my preparation. A 2019 gala photo revealed members standing in order, hands on ledger books, performing subtle ceremonial gestures I could replicate. A folded journal note read, "Observe, do not touch. Every ledger is a mirror." I memorized every nuance, every angle. By October 7th, my preparation was near complete. I had learned security protocols, ceremonial gestures, introductions, and timing. Emily uncovered a minor ledger discrepancy, a missing signature hinting at vulnerability, small but vital. That evening, as I tucked Emily into bed, she whispered, "Dad, we can do this." Mom left clues for a reason. Her maturity stunned me. 14, yet she carried her mother's Sip's intuition and precision. I kissed her forehead. Together we will uncover the truth. The first near discovery happened while photographing a ledger. A society member glanced sharply. Emily, hidden, signaled, "Don't move." I froze, pretending to adjust my cufflink, heart pounding. The member moved on. One misstep could expose everything. Patience and vigilance were survival. October 8th, 9, we cross-referenced photographs, receipts, and ledgers. Emily identified timing mismatches in donations versus gala attendance, subtle anomalies revealing hidden transactions. Each clue added layers to our understanding. October 10th, I rehearsed gestures, memorized names, and cataloged evidence. Grief and betrayal had sharpened into tactical clarity. The society's doors, once invisible, forbidding, now beckoned as challenges I would meet lawfully, intelligently, and with patience. I paused that morning, watching Emily compare ledger entries to photographs. "This is bigger than money," I said. "It sets trust, understanding who Mom was and why she did this." She nodded, resolute. "Then we shall do it, Dad, carefully, step by step." Stepping into the Boston streets, leaves crunching beneath my shoes, I realized this was a door I was never meant to enter. Yet for my daughter, for justice, and for the truth, I would walk through it. Every handshake, nod, and ledger entry would be part of the path into the hidden world she had left behind. October 15th, 2022, Boston. The Society's gala was at the historic Liberty Hall, crystal chandeliers casting golden light across polished oak floors. The air carried soft classical music, the scent of perfume, polished shoes, and faint waxed candles. I adjusted my tie for the fifth time, feeling the weight of every ledger, receipt, and photograph in my briefcase. Emily observed from a small hidden nook near the grand staircase, notebook clutched tightly. She was my eyes in ways I couldn't fully articulate. The invitations were precise, embossed, gold-lettered, carrying codes only someone with my wife's foresight could interpret. I had memorized every name, every title, every ritual gesture, rehearsed for days. Yet stepping into the hall, the society's presence struck me. Leaders moved with subtle gestures, nods, and glances, revealing nothing but control and secrecy. I moved carefully through the crowd, greeting members as rehearsed. Watching for anomalies, Emily whispered through a tiny earpiece, "Ledger on the side table, rear corner." I adjusted my pace, approaching naturally. There it was, slightly askew, detailing recent transactions. $50,000 transferred on October 1st, $75,000 on October 3rd. Minor discrepancies noted in black versus blue ink. My heart raced. Each line was a breadcrumb into the society's secretive operations. As I photographed pages, I noticed subtle reactions, a raised brow, a fleeting glance, a micro expression signaling suspicion. Timing was everything. Emily noticed a note tucked between pages, her mother's handwriting. Observe, protect, reveal only when ready. My stomach tightened. Mom had left instructions, not just clues. Circling the room, I observed the rituals, a nod here, a handshake there, hands placed over ledgers during conversation. One tall silver lapel pin member lingered near the staircase, eyes scanning. Every movement had meaning, every gesture a code. I memorized them all. Emily spotted another ledger under a velvet tablecloth. Whispering instructions, I secured photographs of the entries. $120,000 contributed in late September, annotations with unfamiliar initials. Each confirmed my suspicions. My wife's involvement had been methodical, her secrecy deliberate. Then came a near discovery. A member approached the table I had vacated, eyes narrowing. My pulse quickened. I froze, pretending to adjust my cufflink. The member lingered, then moved on. Every unnoticed photograph, every careful observation was a victory. Emily noticed subtle irregularities. One ledger entry repeated across documents, $15,000 discrepancy. Minor alone, but crucial. I made a mental note. Observing members subtly exchanging envelopes confirmed hidden transfers. Mom's notes emphasized caution. Document. Do not confront. Reveal when ready. By 11 p.m., the gala was winding down. Leaders departed in small clusters. I left with photographs, ledger entries, and a new understanding of society operations. Near discoveries had sharpened vigilance. Subtle glances had revealed cracks in their facade. Outside, Boston streets glowed under amber lights. Emily's small hand brushed mine. "Dad, she left us clues for a reason," she whispered. I squeezed her hand. Betrayal had fractured our reality, but discovery, careful, calculated, and shared with Emily, was stitching a path toward justice. The night's lessons were clear. Observe closely. Move cautiously. Trust breadcrumbs left by those before us. The gala had whispered its secrets, and we had listened. The real work, careful unraveling, had only just begun. October 20th, 2022. Boston's streets were painted in amber and gold, the autumn chill seeping into every corner. After the gala, Emily and I had established a rhythm, day by day, thread by thread, tracing the path my wife had left for us. Every ledger, receipt, note, and photograph became a key. The deeper I dug, the more I realized the society's financial web was intricate, deliberate, and occasionally inconsistent. Some funds had quietly diverged into members' personal ventures. My wife's altruistic intentions had been cleverly disguised, but subtle discrepancies hinted at pockets of greed. Emily sat cross-legged on the floor, magnifying glass in hand, comparing ledger entries to gala photographs. "Dad, look at this," she whispered. A donation overlapped another account. Same date, different initials. My wife's handwriting matched here, but someone else signed there. This was the first tangible crack in the society's carefully constructed facade. I cataloged each irregularity meticulously, dates, amounts, ledger references, and corresponding photographs. $32,000 here, $45,500 there. Seemingly small alone, but collectively they mapped patterns of subtle misdirection. I photographed every ledger page, double-checked cross-references, and noted Emily's discoveries. Her attention to detail was invaluable. She connected threads I might have missed. On October 22nd, I returned to the Boston archives with the private investigator. Copies of gala guest lists, public filings, and charitable contributions revealed subtle anomalies. $50,000 labeled confidential grant lacked acknowledgement in public records. $75,000 appeared under two separate initials in successive months. My wife's annotations, "Observe, not interfere. Connect the shadows," guided us through the labyrinth. The shadows became literal on October 24th, when Emily decoded a cryptic drawing in one of her mother's journals. Lines intersected like a map, each triangle, circle, and arrow pointing toward individuals or events. "Dad, she wanted us to see motives, not just money," Emily said quietly. Her observation hit me. The $5 million wasn't simply financial, it was relational and moral. Every movement had purpose, and my wife had anticipated our scrutiny. I spent the following days photographing ledgers, recording whispered conversations near gala venues, and tracking financial transfers. Minor confrontations tested my composure. On October 28th, while photographing an office ledger, a member glanced sharply in my direction. My body froze, Emily signaled subtly. Timing and precision had become survival skills. By October 30th, subtle patterns emerged. Contributions labeled as charitable had been rerouted into member projects. Cross-referencing gala photographs with ledger entries revealed small yet telling gestures, envelopes exchanged, nods signaling acknowledgement of transfers. My wife's notes emphasized caution. Document, do not confront, reveal when ready. By November 1st, we had amassed a comprehensive dossier: photographs, ledger entries, notes, and annotations. Minor confrontations honed patience. Grief and betrayal transformed into focus. Each revelation became a tool for justice. Each pattern a step toward the courtroom showdown I knew was coming. Emily's insight continued to astonish. She noticed a member consistently altering amounts, masking internal diversions. "Dad, this is subtle but real," she said. I nodded. Every detail mattered, and together we were uncovering the strategy hidden from all but the most observant. By the end of the day, we had reconstructed a hidden world, decoding motives, uncovering manipulations, and understanding the woman my wife had been. The evidence was tangible and actionable. The society's shadows were no longer obscure. They had become the framework for revelation. Patience, precision, and vigilance were our allies, and the stage for confrontation was nearly set. By November 10th, 2022, the society had begun to sense subtle disturbances. Invitations became selective, whispers more guarded, and security tightened, evident even from the periphery. Boston's late autumn wind rattled the trees, carrying the crisp scent of leaves and frost. Emily and I had settled into a careful rhythm, observing, photographing, and cross-referencing every note, ledger, and photograph her mother had left. Each minor discrepancy became critical evidence, each anomaly a thread we could follow. Emily spotted it first, a ledger entry in blue ink dated November 2nd, 2020, corresponding to a gala photograph, yet signed differently than expected. "Dad, this one doesn't match," she whispered. I leaned over her shoulder. Subtle, almost invisible to anyone not trained in observation, but crucial, a vulnerability in the society's perfect facade. Our days blurred into careful steps, observing, documenting, photographing, retreating, every rustle of paper in offices, every casual glance from society members, every whispered conversation became a test. On November 12th, I noticed a leader placing a folded envelope inside a ledger in a ritualistic manner. I captured the moment discreetly with my camera. Emily immediately recognized the pattern. The envelope's positioning matched a symbol in one of her mother's journals. "It's a code," she whispered. Tension peaked on November 14th. While photographing ledger entries in a quiet corner of the Beacon Hill Library, a member's shadow fell across my camera lens. Time froze. Emily, hidden nearby, signaled subtly, "Don't move." I held my position, pretending to adjust a notebook, heart pounding. The member lingered, then moved on. Each encounter reinforced the stakes. One misstep could expose months of investigation. By November 16th, a pattern of selective fund diversion emerged. Contributions appearing altruistic were redirected into personal projects or used to strengthen member influence. My wife's notes, annotations, and cryptic drawings guided us. She had anticipated our steps, leaving breadcrumbs to separate legitimate charitable intent from self-serving manipulations. Each evening, Emily and I documented everything meticulously. Receipts, invoices, photographs, and annotations filled binders and digital folders. $5,000 here, $15,000 there, minor alone, but when compiled, revealing a network of deception. The autumn chill pressed against our apartment windows as we reviewed our evidence on November 18th. Emily, magnifying glass in hand, pointed out an unusual pattern: contributions consistently underreported, scribbled in hurried ink. "Dad, someone was covering tracks." she murmured. I nodded, pride swelling at her insight. Every detail mattered. Together we were uncovering a strategy hidden from all but the most observant. By November 20th, the society grew more cautious. Invitations were fewer, events smaller, communications increasingly coded. Observations, photographs, and ledger analysis revealed subtle behavioral changes, hesitation in gestures, microexpressions, careful handling of envelopes. Each action was a clue, a whisper that someone was tracing shadows. The day concluded with a final review. Emily and I had compiled every observation, ledger, photograph, and note. Minor discrepancies mapped, near discoveries recorded, patterns fully charted. The Society's tightened lines of silence were proof of progress. Their caution exposed vulnerabilities we could exploit lawfully. I closed the binders and looked at Emily. Every line we've traced, every shadow we've followed, is building a path to truth, I said. She smiled faintly. Together in silence we had drawn lines others could not see, lines that would lead to exposure, accountability, and closure. Outside, Boston's streets reflected amber light off wet pavement. The autumn wind rattled windows, carrying the smell of leaves and frost. The shadows we traced were no longer opaque. They had become the framework for revelation. Patience, precision, and vigilance were our allies. The stage for confrontation was nearly set. December 10th, 2022. Boston Superior Court, late morning. The winter chill pressed against the courthouse doors, carrying the faint scent of snow yet to fall. I adjusted my tie for the final time, feeling the weight of every ledger, receipt, photograph, and note neatly tucked into my briefcase. Emily walked beside me, 14 but composed beyond her years, her notebook of mother's annotations clasped tightly. Today, everything betrayal, grief, and months of meticulous work would converge under the scrutiny of judges, society leaders, and the public eye. The courtroom was hushed, marble floors reflecting pale winter light streaming through tall windows. Society leaders sat together, composure taut, hands resting over leather-bound ledgers. They whispered among themselves occasionally, eyes darting toward me as I approached the bench. I placed my briefcase on the table with deliberate calm. This was the culmination of months of patient work, careful observation, and detailed evidence collection. I began presenting ledgers, each page annotated with amounts, dates, initials, and references to corresponding photographs and gala events. Your Honor, I said, voice steady, these ledgers document transactions between the Society and various entities. Many contributions were diverted to personal ventures of certain members, rather than the charitable purposes my wife intended. Murmurs spread through the courtroom. One leader shifted in his chair, eyes narrowing. Emily, sitting beside me, handed the judge photocopies of her mother's cryptic notes, symbols, triangles, initials cross-referenced with transactions. I explained financial discrepancies, showing $32,000 unaccounted for in March 2020, $75,000 in November 2019 under two separate initials, and a minor $15,000 diversion spread across multiple accounts. Each piece of evidence linked directly to the Society's deliberate concealment. I detailed the annotations, demonstrating how they provided a trail back to responsible individuals. Society leaders' composure faltered. Fingers drummed, legs shifted, whispered questions exchanged. One member's silver lapel pin, the insignia from my wife's will, gleamed under the lights. Betraying tension, the judge leaned forward. Mr. Hale, can you confirm your evidence is accurately traced and verifiable? I nodded. Every entry has date, amount, source, and supporting photographs. My daughter and I traced each transaction step by step. Emily highlighted a sequence of contributions labeled as charitable but diverted into member ventures. She pointed to her mother's handwritten note, observe, protect, reveal only when ready. The courtroom fell silent. The Society leaders' whispered reassurances faltered under the clarity of our evidence. I continued, presenting minor irregularities overlapping ledger entries, missing signatures, duplicated transactions, and annotations indicating internal diversions. Every fact was paired with visual proof, gala photographs, receipts, and journals, Day-by-day connections were narrated, from autumn observations to ledger comparisons, highlighting patterns Emily had meticulously identified. The courtroom reacted subtly but unmistakably. One member's hand trembled adjusting a ledger. Another's gaze darted nervously. Micro-expressions betrayed fear. The judge asked pointed questions about the society's protocols, and I explained the hierarchy, rituals, and network of financial flows, every answer backed by evidence, chipping away at their facade of order. Then Emily presented the decisive clue, a decoded drawing from her mother's journal, mapping symbols to names and initials. Your Honor, these illustrate deliberate fund manipulation. My mother intended these funds for legitimate causes, but certain members diverted portions for personal gain. Whispered glances passed among leaders. They recognized that their careful concealment had been penetrated. By late afternoon, the courtroom had transformed into a stage where betrayal, grief, and justice intersected. Leaders were visibly strained, some sweating, others feigning composure. I walked through each ledger, showing receipts alongside photographs and annotations. Each element reinforced the narrative: secrecy, selective mismanagement, and deliberate concealment. The judge, absorbing the breadth of evidence, addressed society leaders. These documented discrepancies, supported by photographic and written evidence, raised serious concerns regarding fiduciary responsibility and the integrity of this organization. Murmurs erupted again. Panic rippled through the leadership. I glanced at Emily. She gave a small nod, the same one she had given during our autumn investigations whenever we discovered a critical clue. Months of grief, investigation, and meticulous preparation had culminated in this moment. Betrayal had been exposed, motives partially clarified, justice laid bare. Stepping outside into the pale winter light, Emily squeezed my hand. "We did it, Dad," she whispered. I exhaled, the weight of months of planning lifting slightly. "We did," I agreed. Justice had been achieved, betrayal exposed, and my wife's intentions, though secretive, had guided us to the truth. December 12th, 2022. Boston's streets were quiet, dusted lightly with the first snow of the season. The courtroom drama was over. Financial restitution had been secured. The society's influence diminished, and Emily's mother's intentions, partially secretive but largely altruistic, were finally honored. I sat in our apartment, reviewing the ledgers one last time. Every entry, every note, every photograph had been catalogued and cross-referenced. Emily perched on the arm of the chair beside me, flipping through her mother's journal. "Dad, she really wanted to make sure this went to the right places," she said softly. I nodded, a mixture of grief, pride, and relief washing over me. The apartment felt lighter, the tension dissipating like morning fog. Outside, the pale winter sun reflected off frost-covered streets, echoing the clarity we had achieved inside. Emily carefully placed the journal back on the shelf, a quiet ritual honoring her mother's careful planning and foresight. I had begun to understand that betrayal, while painful, had been a lesson in vigilance and patience. The society's deception, once threatening, now lay exposed in meticulous documentation. Every ledger entry, receipt, and photograph had become a testament to truth, diligence, and justice. Emily looked up at me. "We did it together, Dad." Her words carried more than victory. They reflected growth, understanding, and resilience. My grief had begun to transition into clarity. The pieces of our fractured reality were now aligned, and our family bond, strengthened by the trials, felt renewed. In the quiet of the apartment, I reflected my wife's secret life had been a labyrinth, but one designed with care and intent. Justice was not just about exposing wrongdoing, it was about honoring her decisions, protecting Emily, and ensuring the truth endured. For the first time since reading the will, I felt a measure of peace. We had navigated betrayal, deception, and hidden agendas, emerging not only with restitution but with understanding. The dust had settled, and with it a profound sense of closure. The shadows were gone, leaving only clarity, vigilance, and the promise of a future guided by the lessons we had learned together. December 15th, 2022. The city was hushed beneath a light dusting of snow, Boston's streets reflecting the pale winter sun. I sat at my desk, reviewing the complete dossier we had compiled, every ledger, receipt, photograph, and annotation meticulously catalogued. Emily was nearby, quietly sketching symbols from her mother's journal, connecting threads in ways that only she could understand. The months of grief, investigation, and strategic planning had led to this moment of reflection. Betrayal had cut deep, but it had been tempered by patience, vigilance, and careful reasoning. Each document was more than evidence. It was a testament to my wife's intentions, her care, and the world she had secretly navigated. I leaned back, considering the journey. Every late-night observation, every whispered discovery, every near confrontation had forged not only a path to justice, but also a deeper understanding of who she had been. The ledger of her life, the evidence, the symbols, the cryptic notes, had become a ledger of the heart. Emily looked up at me. "Dad, she wanted this to matter," she said softly. I nodded. It wasn't just about the money or the society's exposure. It was about honoring intention, protecting family, and ensuring that the truth endured. I archived the dossier permanently, storing every photograph, receipt, and annotation in a secure file. Each page was a bridge between grief and understanding, between betrayal and clarity. I realized that patience, strategic thinking, and emotional resilience had allowed us to honor her legacy while reclaiming control of our lives. And as I closed the ledger for the final time, a thought crystallized in my mind, one that captured everything the months had taught me. You didn't lose me. You gave me away. The city outside was calm, yet within those pages and symbols the journey remained alive. The shadow of betrayal had lifted, leaving clarity, purpose, and the quiet knowledge that we had preserved, not just evidence, but family, truth, and honor. Months later, spring 2023, Boston. A charity gala, grand and luminous, with crystal chandeliers reflecting soft golden light. I moved among the attendees with measured composure, Emily at my side, notebook tucked discreetly under her arm. A former society member approached, feigning warmth and cordiality, unaware that every handshake, every word, every subtle gesture was being discreetly recorded. He smiled, offering empty pleasantries, oblivious to the fact that his every move would become part of the permanent record. I listened, observed, and documented silently, Emily's quiet notes capturing details that might otherwise go unnoticed. The irony was sweet. Tables had turned. Justice had been tempered with discretion, strategy, and emotional closure. I smiled subtly, a quiet satisfaction washing over me. Outside, the spring evening shimmered over Boston's streets. Betrayal had been exposed, secrets uncovered, and yet life moved on. The shadows that once loomed over our family had vanished, replaced with vigilance, clarity, and a quiet sense of triumph. In that moment, I realized the final truth: some lessons are revealed not through confrontation, but through patience, observation, and the steadfast pursuit of justice. And this time we had done it together. December 20th, 2022. Boston's streets were slick with early winter frost, the city quiet in the post-trial calm. The society had been exposed, their influence diminished, but Emily and I knew the work wasn't fully done. Months of investigation had revealed not only mismanagement but subtle manipulations, hidden ledgers, overlooked annotations, and cryptic correspondence that hinted at deeper layers of deception. The shadows of secrets lingered, and we had to trace them. Emily sat cross-legged on the floor, magnifying glass in hand, comparing gala photographs with the last batch of ledgers we had retrieved from the Society's archives. "Dad, look at this," she whispered. A small ledger, overlooked in prior searches, contained multiple transactions that didn't match any public filing. $18,000 here, $42,500 there. Each minor discrepancy was a thread leading to individuals who had attempted to bypass accountability. I carefully photographed every page, noting anomalies and cross-referencing with previous evidence. Emily's keen eye caught subtle signs, differing ink types, misaligned dates, and small symbols in margins that had escaped my initial scrutiny. "It's like they left us breadcrumbs," she said softly. I smiled grimly, her mother's foresight guiding us still. We spent days mapping the residual evidence, tracing patterns of financial manipulation, Some funds had been partially redirected into seemingly legitimate ventures, while others were used to reinforce the society's internal power structure. Every envelope, every handwritten note, every ledger entry became a puzzle piece, revealing an intricate web of secrecy beyond what we had initially uncovered. On December 23rd, we discovered a particularly telling document, a photograph of a society meeting where members were passing envelopes with handwritten initials, some matching earlier ledger discrepancies. Emily pointed out a faint marking on one envelope, a triangle similar to one her mother had drawn in her journal. Dad, Mom knew exactly how to track them, she said, eyes wide. It was both awe-inspiring and chilling. My wife had anticipated even these lingering shadows. I documented every photograph, ledger, and annotation, noting dates and corresponding events. We began creating a comprehensive map linking members to transactions, gifts, and gala appearances. The level of precision required us to revisit every detail multiple times, ensuring that no discrepancy went unnoticed. Even in the quiet of our apartment, the weight of months of investigation hung heavily. Emily, sitting beside me with her notebook, whispered, "Dad, there's more than money here. Mom wanted us to see who they really are, their motives, their choices." Her insight struck me. Uncovering the remaining secrets was not just about financial restitution. It was about revealing character, patterns of deception, and accountability. One evening, a minor but significant discovery shifted the balance. A ledger page previously overlooked contained entries that mirrored donations in earlier years but with altered recipient names. The discrepancy was small, $7,500, but enough to indicate continued manipulation. I noted the details carefully, photographing the page and cataloging each reference. Emily pointed out that the symbols beside each altered entry matched those her mother had highlighted months earlier. By December 28th, our new dossier was complete. Every hidden ledger, every photograph, every handwritten annotation had been traced, mapped, and verified. We had uncovered the final echoes of the society's secrets, revealing minor manipulations that, while less consequential than the original mismanagement, were critical to ensuring a complete and truthful record. Sitting back, I felt a mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction. The lingering shadows of secrecy were now illuminated. Emily and I had navigated every twist, every hidden trail, and every deceptive gesture. Justice had been achieved, but vigilance had ensured it was complete. As snow fell gently outside, Boston's streets transformed into a silent canvas. Emily turned to me, a quiet smile on her face. "Dad, we did everything Mom would have wanted," she whispered. I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. The society had secrets, but we had traced them all. Every echo of deception had been accounted for, every hidden thread mapped and understood. The shadows were gone. The truth, painstakingly uncovered, had secured our family's legacy and preserved the integrity of my wife's intentions. The echoes of secrets once haunting and obscure had finally been silenced. January 3rd, 2023. Boston's winter had softened. Snow lay in gentle mounds along sidewalks and sunlight reflected off icy rooftops. The investigation was complete. The society's deception had been fully exposed, and the remaining anomalies traced. Emily and I sat in our apartment reviewing the final documents one last time. Every ledger, photograph, annotation, and note was cataloged and archived. Mom's intentions had been honored. Justice had been served. Emily held her mother's journal in her lap. "Dad, she really thought of everything," she said softly. Her eyes reflected pride, understanding, and a quiet reverence. She had grown tremendously over the past months, not just in knowledge, but in resilience and patience. Together we had navigated betrayal, secrecy, and manipulation, emerging stronger and wiser. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the journey lift. The apartment was calm, the city quiet outside. I placed the final ledger into the secure archive, a symbolic closure for the months of labor, grief, and meticulous planning. This was more than documentation. It was the preservation of truth, the safeguarding of legacy, and the careful honoring of a life lived with both secrecy and altruism. Emily looked up at me. "Dad, we did it together," she said. I nodded, pride and emotion mixing. Betrayal had been the catalyst, but vigilance, strategy, and shared dedication had transformed it into understanding and closure. Mom's vision, partially secret, partially altruistic, had been realized. I reflected on everything we had endured. The shadow of betrayal had taught patience. The weight of secrecy had demanded precision, and the delicate guidance of my daughter had reminded me that legacy is not only about wealth or documents, but about integrity, understanding, and the bonds we preserve. As the afternoon sunlight streamed through the frost-covered windows, I whispered a thought I would carry forever. You didn't lose me, you gave me away. And in that simple phrase lay the culmination of grief, revelation, justice, and love. The journey had begun with betrayal, but it ended with clarity. Our family bond, tempered by adversity and illuminated by truth, had been secured. My wife's legacy, carefully hidden, thoughtfully guided, and now fully revealed, would endure. Every shadow had been traced, every secret exposed, and the echoes of deception had been transformed into a testament of resilience and truth. Boston's streets outside gleamed in the pale winter sun, a quiet reflection of the resolution within: the ledger, the journal, the photographs. All secured, the journey concluded. Our legacy preserved, our family whole.